Welcome to the Change with Him podcast. My name is Gerard Uselli, and this is episode 50. This is just unbelievable to get to this point, understanding so many people's perspectives about change. It has been an incredible journey, 6 months of experiencing so many conversations about people and how their journeys have brought them to where they are today. This one is very close to home. A very special guest. No need for the introduction, but I love to do the introduction any day of the week. My mother, Madeline Uselli. Mom, how are you today?
Hi, Jerry. I'm so happy that you chose me to be your 50th guest. And I'm so honored. And I have to say, when you used to tell me, Mom, I'm going to do a podcast, I had no idea what a podcast was, not a clue. But now I've been watching them and I cannot believe how great you are at this job. You're doing a wonderful job with this. You're so articulate and great.
And that is the unconditional support that I always look for, and I couldn't be anywhere without. But to really bring it back all the way to the past, and always the first question I ask any of my guests, what was your childhood like growing up?
When I think back to my childhood, I just remember all the wonderful things about it. You know, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, in the Sunset Park area. I lived with my mom, dad, and my brother Michael, who's 4 years older than me, in a one-family house. We were really close. My brother and I, we always had each other's back, and we still do. We talk on the phone 3 times a day.
I could attest for this one.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so we were very traditional. We used to come home for lunch for school. My mom had everything ready on the table for us. She went to all the school functions. And when I became a mom, I felt a little guilty because I had gone back to work when your sister Christina went to kindergarten. And I couldn't attend as many of the functions as my mom did. So I felt a little bad, but what can you do? I had to go to work. My dad was a lot of fun. He worked in Manhattan.
The legend.
But he was fun. He was a lot of fun. And we lived very, very close to all of our relatives.
Great. So something that I wanted to have you elaborate on more is explain a little bit what it was like to have so much family around you just within a matter of blocks. It's such a privilege to even have that aspect of so many people who love you, like just around you in all access.
It was great, Jerry, having our family around us. There wasn't anywhere that we went where there wasn't someone from our family. An aunt lived across the street. My grandmother lived right around the block with my aunt and her family in that same house. My other aunt lived down the block. My other grandmother lived a block over. We were all connected. We went to our grandmother's and grandfather's house every Sunday. We took turns. We went to one Sunday, one to the other Sunday, but we still saw them all the time because we were with them. We were with them all the time, and it was great. There was always a lot of support. When we went to my grandma Galdi, which was my father's mother's house, there were a lot of people. There were a lot of my cousins. And what we used to do, which was a lot of fun too, because, you have to remember we didn't have a lot of technology. So we played a lot of games. And what we used to do is we used to set up the basement as like a movie theater because maybe there would be a movie on, but it would only be on once a year. So we'd set it up. It was always The Wizard of Oz.
I can believe that.
Night. And we'd set it up. We'd pop popcorn. We'd turn out the lights. And we really looked forward to it. At my other grandmother's house, we played bingo on Sunday.
Hmm.
And I used to cry if I didn't win. So they used to let me win all the time.
Well, I must say, I had a question about that, especially on the movie front. Was there ever like a special kind of occasion where you saw a movie for the first time within that house and just be like, wow, I can't believe I witnessed such a great movie just within the foundation of my family?
Well, you know what? I'm trying to think. Movies? I don't know about movies. We But I do remember certain things like happening. I don't want to date myself, but I do remember watching certain TV shows. I remember we watched Lost in Space. You
Right.
don't even know what that is, but it was a show and we used to go upstairs. It was special. I remember watching The First Man Walk on the Moon
Wow.
with my family. I remember, and this one I really shouldn't even say, but I remember when President Kennedy got
Right.
shot, I was with my family at my grandma's house. So yeah, I do remember a lot of those things.
I think in the aspects of being so homebound with so many people who love you in your life and just really giving that impact for who you are as a person getting older and really coming into your own as a person. What was it like to know the journey off the bat that you wanted to be a teacher?
It's funny. When I was little, I didn't go to kindergarten. Our school didn't have a kindergarten, so we went right into first grade. And I cried for the first month. I did not want to leave my mother. So it's just amazing to me that I chose that path. Once I started to get into the school routine, I really liked it. And I used to always want to be a teacher. I would play teacher and I set up a room in our basement and I had a desk and blackboard and a file cabinet. I had everything. My mother had bought me everything a teacher would have. And I would talk as if I were talking to the kids in my class. So, and I was really, really young when I did this. So I really always had an interest in this. As a student myself, being a student, I was way too conscientious. I used to drive my mother crazy because I would do my homework over like 20 times if it wasn't absolutely perfect. And that's not such a good thing to do because I was so hard on myself when my parents were so supportive and they just used to tell me, just do your best. And that's all we ask of you. But I had to make it perfect. So
Now, just a follow up on that, what kept you going on the notion that you want to make things perfect?
I think that's something that was just inside of me. I wanted to make the teachers happy. I wanted to make, and I still do when when I used to, well, now I'm retired, but when I was working, I always, if I was writing a lesson plan or I was getting observed, you saw what I went through. I would practice in the house until it was perfect. And, not everything is going to turn out perfect. That's just the way it is. But I used to always try to make it perfect. Like right now, I was trying to make the background here perfect. I cannot compete with yours, but I try.
Look, I think you've out perfected me on that one. That's for sure. Again, and kind of to go a little bit more in depth, especially becoming a teacher and working with so many different students throughout your life. In today's sense, what do you think the youth means to you?
Every year I would say, oh, this is the best grade I've ever taught. I love this grade. Then a few years later, I'd get a different grade. I'd say, oh no, this is the one. Because every group of kids brought something different to the table. I would have to say it was never a boring day. My days were never boring. They were never two alike. Just like the kids are not alike. Every kid is an individual. Every child brings something different with them to school. And as a teacher, yes, content, I always felt like the content was very important to teach, but I always felt it was important to find their strengths, find their interests, and build on that and make them feel like they could do what they set out to do. And I hope that I always tried to do that with you and your sister also, to find what you're good at. Not everybody is going to be good at everything. One year I had a general ed special ed class. You're familiar with this now, ICT class. And I taught them music and I taught them how to play the recorder. So I had 40% of the students that were struggling. So they struggled with their academic subjects. And these kids just took off with the recorder. There was one boy in the class. He was so good. He was so much better than me. I mean, he went home, taught himself how to play different songs, and we put on a concert for the whole school. And it was just amazing to see these kids who struggle academically shine.
I think to just add a point on that too, as I'm coming into my own as being a teacher as well, following the motherly footsteps on this one, it is interesting the aspects of relationship building with students and understanding their intellect to begin with. And that sense of honesty with teachers, I feel like is such a respectable and accountable thing because it does challenge and pressure that teacher to make sure that you're giving those students an experience and education they deserve.
I'm glad you see that, and I think you're going to be a great teacher. I think you already are.
Thank you. Thank you. To kind of change the subject a little bit based on how life has been for you, what was the change like for you moving from Brooklyn to Staten Island?
Yeah, that was a big change when I moved from Brooklyn to Staten Island. My family all remained in Brooklyn for a while, and I was used to that, having everybody around me. And now I was kind of, alone on Staten Island. I liked it. It was different though. Shopping was different. In Brooklyn, the stores they're on avenues like Fifth Avenue, 13th Avenue. So you'd walk down, you'd take the bus, you'd take the train. There was always a way to get somewhere. You didn't really need to drive. You come to Staten Island and you really did need to drive. There had to drive to the mall or wherever. There's the bus and there's the train, but it wasn't like Brooklyn. The stores were different. But now I definitely got used to Staten Island, and I do like it here. I say it all the time. I do like living on Staten Island.
That aspect I follow the pursuits on for sure, especially like appreciating Staten Island, having the driving convenience, having parking in a borough within New York City. That is just miraculous to say the least when you compare it to the others.
Well, I went back to Brooklyn a few weeks ago and I couldn't find a parking space anywhere. I was going, how did we do this? How did we do this? But we did. But yes, I appreciate that. I come home. I have a spot in front of my house, quite a few spots in Brooklyn. My mother, after a while, didn't want to go out because she'd say, I'll lose my spot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I hope one day in our world, there will be a change within parking and more convenient parking on Brooklyn. Now, also to add a little bit more questions on the family aspect, now you being a mother for over 30 years, What does it mean to you?
Well, being a mother is the greatest gift that I've ever been given. I love from the moment that I found out that I was expecting you, I was elated. I could not have been happier. And then when I had Christina, happiness. I mean, I'm going to say, was every single thing along the way happy? No. We had our great times and we had some sad times too, but we worked through them. I feel like it's a full time commitment being a mom and a dad. It's full time, it's a lifetime. It's not going to end when you reach a certain age. I'm always going to be your mother, and I'm always going to be here for the two of you, your families, and always, that's just the way I feel. I love it. I've always loved it. I'm so proud of my two children. I feel both have grown up to be wonderful people. I
I
know
think
I'm
it's a,
bragging, but this is really the way I feel.
I think it's a seesaw effect as well. As far as you always being my lover, I'll always be your son. And I think to act in that accordance of being your son and being gracious for things, no matter what happens, good or bad, that should always be a testament towards how I was brought into this world.
Yeah, just to prove tonight, because like I say, when I was young, we didn't have technology. Just to set this up, you were so patient with me setting up this Zoom for me. So, like we do for each other. That's what I always say.
Absolutely.
That's what a family is. That's what we do.
What do you think are traits my sister and myself have from you?
Well, I'm going to say that, your father, Frank, and I share a lot of the same values. We're very different people, but we share a lot of values the same. We were both very hard workers. And I feel you and Christina have followed that. You set goals and you work towards those goals. You both are helpers. You've both chosen careers where you're helping people. Even before you chose teaching, fundraising, you were always helping, conducting different events. So I think that was a big thing that you got from both of us. And I'm going to turn it over to you and see, what do you think that you and Christina get from me?
I think the first word that comes to mind, if this was asked to me in the public, what I would say, kindness is the first word that comes to mind. Like having the kindness and the humility where if I do something for someone, not always to be looking for the praise for it. It's about the will of actually respecting someone to the same standards that you have for yourself, and having that light before anything else has molded me as a reflection of you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
Absolutely. And this is my final question that, again, I like to ask all of my guests for. What is the biggest change you want to see for yourself?
Well, this year's been a big change for me. Besides the pandemic, besides everything going on in the world, I retired this year. So I've been in this field teaching since I'm 22. So this year I retired. So teaching was like a big chunk of who I am. So I don't feel like I want to give up. I'm done. I feel like I've still got a lot. I've still got a lot in me. So I wake up now in the morning and I exercise for almost an hour, actually 49 minutes with the tape that I watch. Okay. And, I never had the time before to do that. So now I do it every day. I'm taking an Italian class. I think my father would be very happy if knowing that I'm trying to learn how to speak Italian because he was born in Italy and spoke Italian fluently, which I wish we would have picked up. But I take it online. I'm hoping in the fall that they're going to offer some classes because I want to do fun things like the kids. I want to do things that I'm interested
Right.
in now. I always wanted to write a book. So I wrote a book. I wrote a children's book. And I'm looking to get it published. So if there's any subscribers out there that have any tips for me, I'd be glad to listen to them because I want to continue with that. So I want to move forward. I'm not going to look back and I'm not going to say, well, I'm just going to stay home. I want to move forward. Maybe I'll do some volunteer work in schools, but I want to keep on going and keep on learning. And I hope that my family and my friends come along on my new adventures with me.
Well, that journey of change is something that I'm looking forward to and that I've experienced from you in so many aspects throughout every day. And it's such a humbling and lovely thing to see as your son in that regard. But nonetheless, this is the 50th episode of the Change Within podcast. For those who want to check us out but have never had the chance to before, you can please check us out at Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mom, thank you so much for coming on today, and you are the best. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jerry. And so are you.